communication with ourselves. And in a world where, we talk about how we communicate with our bosses and how we communicate with our kids and how we communicate with our clients and our customers, isn't it weird to be talking about how we communicate with ourselves? Actually, this is where it starts. This is foundational. How we communicate with ourselves influences everything, and it influences our self-esteem. It influences how we perceive ourselves and how we perceive situations, because we can only perceive situations that we're in based on our own perspective, of course. And so if our glasses are darkened or if our glasses are colored, that's how we're going to see a conversation. We're going to see it as a conflict. That's we're going to see a discussion as potentially attacking us if we're not happy with ourselves and if we're attacking ourselves. So we are here to discuss self-talk, also called inner dialogue or inner monologue. We call it an inner dialogue because it goes back and forth, but it's really with ourselves. So it's a complex thing. So let's go ahead and begin. Let's see. Or why is that happening? Oh, there we go. What is self-talk? Self-talk is a person's inner voice, providing a running monologue of thoughts while we're conscious. There are people in this world who describe not having self-talk. They're few and far between. They're few and far between. Most of us have way too much self-talk. Most of us have noticed it through our lives. We'll hear it going on, but there are not a lot of times where we ask ourselves to note what we're saying to ourselves or to really listen. So the three questions we want to ask are we aware of our self-talk? I'm going to answer that by saying probably not as aware as we should be. It is helpful to be aware of our self-talk. We're going to do an exercise where we become more aware. How does it affect us? It labels us within ourselves, so we then have a face-saving striving to meet our self-talk. If our self-talk is telling us this is going to be so much fun, you're going to be excited, they want to hear you, then we're going to rise to meet that energy. If our self-talk is telling us this is not going to go well, that might be a self-fulfilling prophecy. So it absolutely affects us. It creates a self-fulfilling prophecy of how we come across to the world. And can we change our negative self-talk? Absolutely. One of the things we're going to discuss is trying to figure out a little bit, whose voice is that anyway, right? Is that a parent voice? Is that a friend voice? Is that a hypercritical self voice? Is that a very gentle mothering of self voice, So where is it coming from? And can we change it? The answer is definitely yes. So if we could take a piece of paper, this is not for the chat, but just take a piece of paper and, or if you prefer to do this on your computer, that's fine. Let's listen to our inner monologue, or let's think about our inner monologue and just write down some examples. They could be positive or negative. What do you tend to hear inside your own head? And when you have, let's say, more than five written down, 5 to 10, I want you to write next to each one a note from 1 to 5 regarding how likely you would be to say it to a friend. 5 is very likely, 1 is you would never. And for a moment, I'm trying to think if we should unmute or do this on chat. Let's do this on chat for a moment. I'd like to see. Oh, I recently saw an article that some people don't have self talk. Yeah, don't have it in my life. I know it kind of blows my mind too. Like, I want to say I don't believe that, but of course, everybody experiences the world differently. So let's write in our chat. Let's choose one thing. It can be something that just choose something and say a number next to it. Maybe if you say you're going to do great, that is something you would say to a friend. So you would write, you're going to do great, 5. Or um, this isn't going well, 2. You wouldn't say that to a friend. Or whatever. So everybody just write one example from your list with a number next to it. And let's put it in the chat so we could discuss that a little bit. You're smart. 5. Absolutely. You would tell that to a friend. That's a silly thought. Excellent. So that is not something you would tell a friend. Excellent. Too much. I should have. Right. Very good. Can't do it right. Very, very good. That we're going to talk about that type of thought. You're a mess. I'm right there with you, right? That thought comes across. It's not going to work, right? I'm not going to be able to make it happen. Put your big girl pants on, right? You might say to a friend, that's funny that that got a 3. Okay. Stupid question. Right. Excellent. And we're going to focus in a little, we're going to hone in a little bit on the negative ones on the next slide. So that's good that some of these are coming up. I'm glad to see some positive, some middle, some negative. Thank you for participating with that. That's great. Let's go back to screen share. And if anybody has any that they need to, that they want to add, you could still add some. We'll come back to this. Am I getting enough done? And the answer is always no, right? No, I'm never getting enough done. Why is that? All right, great. So let's go back to screen share for a moment. And we're going to, hang on one second. We're going to, okay, whoops, ups, eeps. Let's listen. Noting our negative self-talk. So noting our negative self-talk. What are things you say to yourself? And I just drew up some examples that I was thinking about, but you, of course, could do other examples. In a negative situation, let's focus on what we say to ourselves that's negative. You don't have to write it in the chat, write it on your paper. You're late, you make a mistake, you procrastinate, someone's upset with you. I wrote a bunch of times when we could be negative in our self-talk. Write down anywhere from 5 to 10 or more, however many, whatever you notice that you say to yourself when something's going wrong. I'll give you another minute. And add, in your own notes, add what triggers you that I didn't think of. Okay. I'm having a problem with this. 1, 2, 3, 4, noting. Okay, common cognitive distortions. We got 2 pages of ways in which we make ourselves feel small. So let's look and see what fits into these cognitive distortions. All or nothing thinking. Someone says something to you that shows that they're upset, right? He hates me, because it can't be that he's just in a bad mood or he's having a hard moment. We take it upon ourselves. We make it very personal, right? Um, Blaming is also a negative is also a negative self-talk. This is what's going on. Um, it's trying to sorry, pinpoint exactly what's going on in a negative way, right? So all or nothing thinking, blaming, discounting the positive. So you go through work for an entire day. You are really doing well. You speak to many people at the library in a way that is very helpful. You do your work very beautifully. And then at the end of the day, something small happens. What are you going to focus on? You're going to focus on that something small and you're going to say, wow, what a terrible day. And that is a natural human way to process reality. We tend to focus on the negative. Um, as a matter of fact, we're going to stop there for a moment and I'm going to come back to stop share. And I'm going to ask each of you to do a little exercise. I'm going to ask you if you could get a piece of paper in front of you and with your pen or with a marker, I want you to make a black dot on that piece of paper and let it be a piece of paper that you don't have notes on, if possible. It could be any size paper. I want you to make a black dot in the middle. So if we're talking about a piece of paper the size of a notebook paper, the black dot will be about the size of your pinky nail, right? Just make a black dot in the middle of the paper. So I don't have to show you what a black dot looks like, you all know. And now I want you to do the following exercise. I want you to write down on another piece of paper, not on this piece of paper that the black dot is on, I want you to write down what you see. Write down what you see. You have in front of you a piece of paper with a black dot in the middle. I want you to write down what you see. And when you do that, how about telling us on chat when you're ready? Or a part of it can be on chat. You don't have to do the whole thing on chat. Solitude, alone. So you have a black dot in the middle of a piece of paper. What do you see? Unique, small void in a sea of white, empty space. Love. Beautiful. I see a black dot about the size of a fingernail on a blank page. You're a literalist. I love it, Curtis. You see a beginning. Let's get a few more. What do you see? Should I answer that? Okay. All right. Beginning, a few more. You see a black dot on a white page. That's what you see. So let me tell you what's going on. Nothing. Dana sees nothing. So let me tell you what's going on here. Does anyone have a vastly different answer? You see something different than everyone else? I don't want to bypass you. Is there anyone that sees something different than a black dot on a white page or on a page? All right, everyone, I want you to look around you. Raise your head up from the black dot on the paper. What did I ask you? I asked you, what do you see? But what we see is that black dot. It was a setup. I had you put a dot on a paper where it wasn't before. And then I asked you, what do you see? And of course you saw that black dot. That's where your attention was focused. But the truth is, it's not just a black dot on a paper. You see a Zoom call, you see a desk, you see a room wherever you are. Maybe you see a window to outside. Maybe you see your dog sleeping on the floor. But it's a setup. When we are not expecting to see something, that's all we see. So we put that black dot, and I told you to do that black dot, and all of our attention is focused there. But that's not all we see, but that's all we're choosing to see in that moment, because that is where our attention is focused. I said draw a black dot, so that's what you see. Now, the way that translates to real life, I'm glad that you like that, Darlene. So, the way that that translates to real life is we could be experiencing 100 things, but we'll choose to see the black dot. We'll choose to see what we didn't expect to see, or what we think we should focus on, or what's going wrong. And that influences our self-talk tremendously. Because if I have 10 patrons come up to me during the day, and I know exactly what to tell 9 of them, and the 10th one, maybe we go on a bit of a wild goose chase, and I tell myself, I'm inefficient. I'm not doing well. I'm not as helpful as this other person. That's looking at the black dot. You are wonderful. You are doing excellently. Um, yeah, we think we should focus on something that's not going well, or we should focus on that situation. But the truth is, we are part of a larger whole, and we always want to remember that we're part of a larger whole. So let's go back to screen share. And you guys will have access to this PowerPoint. So I don't feel like I need to go through each one, tremendously, because you'll have access. But these are ways in which we distort reality. We discount the positive. I have nothing that works out. No, dear, you had one thing that didn't work out among 100 wonderful things. Emotional reasoning. I feel anxious, so something bad is going to happen, right? So you walk into a room and your self-talk says, everyone's looking at me. Or your self-talk says, I don't know what's going on here. I'm not up to the minute, right? No, maybe that's just how you feel. Maybe that's not what's really going on. Fallacy of fairness. That's a really good one. It's a really good fallacy. It's not fair. She has no right to say it to me. How much does fairness affect life? Let's go ahead and get back in the chat for this one. This will be fun to see. How much does fairness affect life? What does fairness have to do with reality? So if I say in my self-talk, that's not fair, right? How relevant is that to what actually happens? We would like to think life ain't fair, right? Good luck with that. Yeah, exactly, Tiffany. So we would like to think things should be fair. Sadly, that's not the same. That's not the same as saying that it is fair. And as a matter of fact, fallacy of fairness is that you get upset when things aren't fair, instead of realizing, oh, this is just the way life is. Things are just not all fair, right? Scar, Lion King, right? Life's not fair, and it isn't something we can control. Yes, the people who should have the resources are not always the people who do have the resources. People who have the control are not always the people who do the best with it. When someone treats us badly, that's not okay. That's not fair. And it's still going to happen because fairness is not a guiding principle of the universe. I hate to say it that way. I don't mean to be anti-universe. I'm pro-universe. But fairness is not something we could always see in the moment. And the way I think of fairness is, you take a person who, let's say, was raised in the woods, right? Let's say raised by wolves, and comes into a hospital and comes into an operating room and looks through the door of the operating room and has a very clear view of somebody cutting open someone's stomach. And there's blood, and there's, the person looks like they're dead, right? And the person says, what is with this society that I have come to? This is an unjust society. This is an unfair society. This is a society where everybody's torturing each other. And you kind of have to think, this person doesn't understand all the ins and outs. right? This person doesn't understand that we're trying to help the person who's on the operating table. This person does not have the full picture. And sometimes with fairness, that's a part of it, that we don't have the full picture, right? So we see someone getting punished, for example, we might think it's not fair. We don't see what they've done, right? Or maybe it's simply not there. Maybe it's simply unfair, and leave it to the universe to figure out fairness in our next life. But we can't have a fallacy of fairness, because the expectation that things are going to be fair is a faulty expectation, right? Hate to say it, I sound like I'm not an optimist. I am very much an optimist, and it's not going to be fair. That's just the way it is, at least not all the time, right? Jumping to conclusions. I bet he thinks I'm stupid after that. Labeling, which is also very dangerous. Labeling is also called it's a way of, it's called static evaluation. It's saying that someone is the way they are. So, for example, someone's late to pick me up, and I say, he's always late. I say, he doesn't respect me. Well, I'm not saying that's necessarily false, but how about this one? He hit traffic. He didn't plan his time well. Maybe it doesn't have to do with respect of you, right? Labeling someone tends to squash growth. So he gets there and you say, you're always late. That's not going to make him on time next time. As a matter of fact, labeling him as always late is more likely to make him late next time. Okay. Magnification. It's terrible that she's mad at me. No, maybe it's just a glitch. Maybe it's just something we need to get through. Let's go to the next page. Okay. Here we go. Minimization. No big deal. I shouldn't care. Well, you do care. You feel, you care, and you're allowed to. Um, Even if it's small, you're allowed to have emotions. If you're telling yourself in your inner talk that you shouldn't feel something, that's a great thing to notice. I need to go back to face for a moment. Does anybody ever, oh, let me see. When someone's in a bad mood, I try to think maybe it's not work. It could be something going on at home. Right, might have a difficult time. It might not be us. It might not be about us. We tend to take life very personally. Someone yells at me, it's my fault. I must have done something wrong. And maybe somebody's having a bad day. Maybe I didn't do what they were expecting. There are many, many things that could be maybes. But let's talk about this moment of, hang on a second. The exact words were minimization. It's no big deal. Hang on a second. So we're talking about minimizing feelings. Does anyone ever do that? You shouldn't feel embarrassed. You shouldn't, you tell yourself, you shouldn't be mad. Don't be mad. You shouldn't be mad. You shouldn't be emotional. You shouldn't care. You know what my least favorite comment in the entire world is? Get over it. That is my least favorite comment in the world. So let's say I'm upset. I'm thinking this is so hard for me. And I tell a friend and they say, get over it. I always feel like saying, I mean, not that it happens so much, but I always feel like saying, wow, you know, you're right. I didn't think of that. That's it. I'm solved. I'm healed. Those magic words, get over it, that really, really helped, which of course it doesn't. And it's ridiculous to think it. Calm down. The words calm down have never calmed anyone down in the history of humanity. Those are inflammatory words. Telling someone to calm down is the best way to get them not to calm down, right? So, yeah, it's the worst. Most of the time I try to think like Mr. Spock, right? What's the most logical response? Keep emotion out of it. Well, this is the thing with emotion. It serves a wonderful purpose. We feel as human beings, and that is appropriate. And if we don't want to be feeling what we're feeling, it doesn't actually do any good to tell ourselves, stop being angry. So our kid takes our lipstick and writes on the wall. And we have lovely lipstick graffiti upon our living room wall. And we're angry, we're upset. That makes sense to be upset. But if I tell myself, don't be angry, does that actually make me less angry? No. What that does is it kind of squashes what I'm feeling and it doesn't allow me to feel it. What if I say to myself instead, what am I feeling? Oh, I'm feeling angry. Why am I angry? I'm angry because I spent a long time choosing that wallpaper or painting that wall and this isn't looking fun. What can I do to be helpful? You move on from the emotion. You allow the emotion and you move on. So if something makes you sad, let's say your evaluation was excellent, 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 pretty good, excellent. And you're like, why'd I get that pretty good? What was that about? How come I didn't get a 5-star excellent? You're allowed to be a little upset. You're allowed to say to yourself, why did that happen? And then you can move on and say, well, what could I learn from this? What is the opportunity within not getting 5-star excellence that will allow me to get it next time, right? But not allowing yourself to feel is not a way to cancel those feelings. We have to actually ask ourselves, what am I feeling? How do I feel in order to move on, right? So minimizing is not the answer. Let's go back to sharing the screen. Fortune telling. Oh, we're all these fortune tellers. I'll never find someone to love. I'll always be alone. Or how about this one? I'll never get the job I want. Well, not with that attitude, right? Okay. What if you, instead of saying, I'll never get the job I want, or I'll never find what I want, what if you say, this is my goal? What are steps toward my goal? I'm not there yet. How do I get there? How do I get there? What are the steps? If we prophesy from on high that something's not going to happen, we're basically keeping it from happening, right? So mental filter, here's what I see. This must be what everybody sees, right? So my boss isn't talking to me and it's the day before my evaluation. She must hate me, right? Mind reading, something happens. She's trying to do this. She meant to do that. He tried to do this. He meant to do that. Does anyone have an example of any of these? Minimization, filter, mind reading, overgeneralization. So for example, let's say you're my friend. So let's say Tiffany's my friend and I forget her birthday. And it goes right by just like it was another day. And I overgeneralize. I am such a bad friend. I'm the worst friend, right? How does that serve me? It doesn't serve me at all. It makes me dip deeper into my mistake and become my mistake. But how would it serve me to say, I did something that I'm not proud of. I did something that's making me feel bad. What steps can I take that that doesn't happen again? It's a lot more productive, right? Allow how you're feeling and take steps toward. So let me go back to chat and see, does anyone have any examples of any of these? Do you need to see the last screen again? Did that go by kind of quickly? Who would like to see the last screen again? Yes. Okay, so let me go to the last screen again. We have 2 screens of common cognitive distortions. All or nothing, emotional reasoning, fallacy of fairness, labeling, magnification, right? Minimization, mind reading, overgeneralizing, personalization, comparison, shoulds. We're going to come back to shoulds. Shoulds is a big one. Shoulds is like fair. Yeah, try arguing with the universe about what should be, right? Okay, let's see what you're coming up with. I'd like to see an example of these. We haven't mentioned shoulds yet. Yeah, that's exactly right. That's the last one. That takes up some time. So when we say, she shouldn't have spoken to me like that. I shouldn't feel this way. That's really not helpful at all, because should is meaningless unless we're trying to grow from it. So I shouldn't have yelled at my child. That's useful. What should I have done? What could I do? What can I do in the future? Right? But to say that something else shouldn't have happened to you or someone else shouldn't have done something, not so useful. Right? Shoulda, coulda. Right. Exactly. So we had examples of negatives before, and we're seeing where these negatives are coming from. Does anyone have a specific example that came up that didn't come up the first time? In a PA, I tend to focus on the one area where I have gotten a meets instead of an exceeds. Right, absolutely, absolutely. I'm right there with you. I actually recently, let's see, after the spring semester, I was going through my evals, and I had 186 students in the spring semester. I teach in college, and I was getting all these great evals. She cares about us. She is passionate. She knows her stuff. All these great evals, and then I hit one that said, um, I'm trying to remember exactly the words. It basically said, she seems to be more interested in discussion than in lecture, and I feel like we had to learn the whole book by ourselves, which between you and me is totally true. I feel like if somebody's reading a book, why do I have to read it for them, right? So I usually use the book in class as like, in addition to what we're teaching. So this person criticized me and said, we had to learn the whole book by ourselves, and we were just having a discussion in class. And they said it in a very negative way. And I looked at that and I said, wow, did I do something wrong? Could I do something better? But I was so proud of myself that out of 186 evaluations, one was negative, and I didn't immediately sink into despondency and say, oh, I'm not a good teacher. Oh, I did a bad job. Instead, I said, kid has a point. Maybe I need to figure that out a little bit. Maybe I need to mention some of the concepts from the book a little more. We can learn from it. Good. Too much clutter, you procrastinate. Excellent, excellent. Outliers are just like that. Maybe that person is always negative, or maybe I can learn from that, right? Yeah, but it's not about putting me down. I deserve to feel very good after so many good evaluations rather than just focusing on the dot on the paper, right? Making one instance into a trait. Right, you were late one morning, you're always late. No, you're not always late, you were late one morning. You spoke harshly one morning, that doesn't mean that you're mean. That doesn't mean that you're a hard speaker. That just means one morning, right? Making one into a trait. So we've got to watch these. And did anyone want to write anything out? If you're still writing, that's okay. I'll come back to it. So we've got to watch these. We've got to see where our cognitive distortions are coming from. And I'm calling them cognitive distortions for a reason. This isn't just negative self-talk. This is literally distorted. Negative feels like, oh, I could concentrate on the positive, or I could concentrate on the negative, and I'm focusing on the negative. But a lot of what we do isn't just focusing on the negative, it's actually distorting what happens. So you say something in a meeting and nobody jumps on that idea, and you say to yourself, that sounded stupid. What's happening in reality? In reality, there might have been a better idea that came up that everybody's excited about, and nobody's thinking about your idea at all, not because it sounded stupid, but because something more efficient and effective was raised. It's not about you at all. We tend to distort in our self-talk, and that is what's important to know, and that's important to name. All right, let's go to the next one. How, I'm trying to do one at a time here. How do we work with these negative thoughts? So there are 4 different ways to work with negative thoughts. And I got some of this information from Ben Martin, who wrote the article, Challenging Negative Self-Talk. And of course, I included some additional reading if you guys want. How do we work with these negative thoughts? So here is my recommendation. There's a 3-column system. In the first column, we write the negative self-talk. So we write, I'm so stupid, or I always procrastinate, or I'm not good enough, or whatever it is you say to yourself. In the second column, you write, well, what's the distortion there? Am I generalizing? Am I minimizing? What's the type of distortion? And then in the last column, what's the actual truth? What's the reality? Let's test this reality. I'm so stupid. Am I stupid? No. I've done well in school. I do well in my job. I'm respected. Was that a stupid thing to say? No. Here's the reality. Maybe I should have read more about it before the meeting. Can I live with that? Is that different than saying I'm so stupid? Yeah, the reality is I needed to prepare more, right? Are my thoughts factual or are they just interpretations? Am I putting interpretations on everybody else's actions? Am I jumping to negative conclusions? Are my thoughts actually true? You are the one who would know that, right? So you do a little bit of reality testing. So all of those negative thoughts that you listed for me before and that you have down on your paper, reality testing. Is it true that anyone at this webinar right now should be saying any of those negative things? Probably not. Has anyone ever had a moment where you're like, oh, somebody else could do this better than I can? Well, that may be true in that moment, but no one else is you. No one else can give to it what you can give to it. No one else can be the full picture, right? So even if someone else could do that job better than you can in the moment, that's not the full picture. The full picture is you're bringing yourself, which is very valuable, right? So reality testing is one thing. Check whether that makes sense from a reality perspective. Look for alternative explanations. Are there other ways I could look at the situation? So instead of saying, I'm so stupid, maybe I need to prepare more. Maybe they're looking for a different type of solution. Maybe somebody who's been here more years might have more insight into the problem. What else could it mean? If I were being positive, how would I perceive the situation? If I were being positive, how could I perceive the situation? Right? Okay. I go to the next one. Putting it in perspective. Is this situation truly as bad as I'm making it out to be? I'm going to say unlikely. Because we tend to catastrophize, we tend to generalize, we tend to put ourselves in the middle of perspective, right? That's a human tendency. So when I say I'm a mess, for example, as someone said before, really, are you a mess or do you just need an hour to clean up your desk? Are you a mess or do you just need to order what you need to do today? Like to order it on a list, right? Because I'm going to bet that a lot of the time we're making the situation out to be a lot worse than it is. What's the worst thing that could happen? How likely is it? Right? So I'm imagining what's the worst thing that could happen in this webinar? You could be sleeping right now. Somebody could be asleep. Is it you? Are you asleep? You know what? If somebody's sleeping, maybe they need their sleep more than they need the webinar. Maybe it's not about me. Maybe this is not personal. Maybe somebody just didn't get enough sleep and they're going to watch it afterwards. That's totally fine. I don't have a problem with that, right? So sometimes you think, oh, this is the worst thing that could happen. But the truth is, it's not about you, right? What's the best thing that could happen? Let's think about that instead. What's most likely to happen? Is there anything good about this situation? And will this matter in the future? Will this matter? How often have we been embarrassed? How often have we been sad? Have we been negative? And I'm not talking about external events that are truly saddening. I'm not talking about the loss of life. I'm not talking about someone, you know, losing a power that they had. I'm talking about what we perceive, what we tell ourselves. If I tell myself they're all judging me, is that going to matter? Not just in 5 years' time, in one day's time. They want to hear what I have to say. We want to hear what you have to say, right? Does it really matter to think, oh, I dropped my cards, they're judging me? You know, when I teach public speaking, I meet up here. Let me go back to face for a moment. When I teach public speaking, I work with a lot of kids who, yeah, I like the word catastrophized here, right? Self confidence plays a big part. One instance into a trait, exactly. So I work with a lot of college students and graduate students as well who are scared. They're scared of being judged. So they stand up there, they make a speech, and 9/10 of it goes very well, and then they make a mistake. Let's just take the easiest mistake. They drop their cards and they pick them up. And they write to me afterwards how they think they did. And they write, I was so embarrassed, I was so humiliated, I dropped my cards in front of everyone, I made a mistake. So I tell my kids, these students, there's a little known secret. This is the truth of life. Nobody likes you better if you're perfect. Nobody's striving for perfection. As a matter of fact, you want to know who we like? We like people who make mistakes. We like people who are real and human and just like us. And I'll just do a little check-in around this. Let's say we were in an actual classroom instead of a Zoom room. And let's say someone walks in the door and it's Mr. Hardy, right? Mr. Hardy walks in the door and says, well, I think I'm going to get a promotion. That evaluation went really well. Love my job, love my life, ready to go. Now, Mr. Hardy sounds like a nice guy. Does anyone feel very strongly, I'd like to be Mr. Hardy's friend? Everything's going well for Mr. Hardy. Got a great evaluation, has a good life, just got a new car, everything's good. Does anyone feel like, I'm feeling drawn to being Mr. Hardy's friend? Does anyone feel like that? Tell me in the chat if you are. Not really. Not really. Now, in comes another person, Mr. Jewel, okay? Mr. Jewel comes in and he's got mud on his face. And he says, oh my God, I just fell in front of the library. I landed in the mud. I'm picking up my books. And who's the one picking up the books next to me? The head of the whole system, right? My boss's boss. And he's sitting there picking up books next to me, and I'm like covered in mud, and he's laughing. So could I ask you a question? Does anyone feel drawn to being Mr. Jewel's friend? Comes in with mud on his face, comes in with a story of embarrassment. Anybody feel drawn to being Mr. Jewel's friend? Jennifer said yes. Jennifer, I want you to unmute for a second. I want to hear your voice if that's okay. Can I ask you why you want to be his friend? Why are you drawn to being his friend?
Um, Good morning. Bless his heart. He just fell. He needs help.
Yeah, dude needs help. He just fell. Give him a paper towel for his
I
face.
know. Clean
Smile
him
with
up a
him.
little bit and send him on his way.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you for unmuting. I appreciate that. And Tiffany, he has a great story. So here's the thing. Um, Karen says she fell down the steps on the way here. Go, Karen. I already like Karen. I already feel something in common with Karen because I too have slipped and fallen, right? So what happens actually is when we make a mistake, when we show that we're human, we actually like each other better. We feel a bond. Nobody wants you to be perfect. There's an illusion that when you do something wrong, people are going to lose respect for you. That's not the case. Think of celebrities, okay? Think of celebrities that we really like and that we value and cherish. And one example that comes to my mind is Jennifer Lawrence, who trips on her way up the stairs and she can't stop eating French fries. Another example is maybe Amy Schumer, who curses when she shouldn't, right? We like people with flaws. And even if you look in literature, right? We like characters like Mr. Darcy. Is he perfect? No, very far from perfect. We like him anyway because he's growth oriented. He tries. We we like people who make mistakes. So what happens literally, just in case you're wondering why, is we feel a bond. We feel a sense of connection. This person's just like me. I too can fall in the mud, right? When Mr. Hardy came in, or Ted, or whatever you want to call him, he comes in and he's like, I don't really have anything in common with him, right? Right. We hate Mr. Collins because he thinks he's perfect, which is more annoying than anything, right? Oh, let's have another day where we just have a webinar on Pride and Prejudice. Okay. Austin webinar next. Okay. So but the thing is, we actually like it when other people show that they're human. It doesn't draw our ire, it doesn't draw our judgment. It actually connects us. It forms a bond. So why then are we so hard on ourselves? Why are we so hard on ourselves that we're not allowed to make a mistake? Let's go back to the list. Yeah, I see that you guys are agreeing with me, which is great. This is a secret. Now, we as adults may know this, or maybe not. Maybe this is the first time you've heard this. There's a wonderful test. I wish I would have prepared this. I wish I would have the citation for you, but there was a wonderful test that was done where they show people 4 different videos. One video is, or actually 4 different types of video. One type is the person goes through an interview perfectly. They do everything right. They answer everything right. They look great. Everything's good. The second is everything's right except they make one mistake. They spill their coffee. They stumble on words. They, do something a little bit off. The third is they do a lot off. They make a lot of mistakes. And the fourth is just a mess, right? From beginning to end. And they asked people, who are you most drawn to? And the experiment was repeated many times. Generally, we're drawn to the second. We're drawn to the person who makes the most effort and makes a mistake. We're not drawn to the person who doesn't make an effort. We're not drawn to the person who makes mistakes all day long. We're drawn to the person who makes an effort and makes a mistake. And the question you need to ask yourself is why? Why do we like that person more than the perfect person? Because who needs perfect friends? Who needs someone? They could have other friends. They don't need me, right? I like being around people who are human. I genuinely do, right? Why do I want to be around someone where I feel like I'm the only one with flaws? Like this is a weird relationship, right? I want to be with someone that I can laugh with, that I can, experience life in a funny way. So, okay, back to our board. We've got putting it in perspective. Is the situation as bad as I'm making it out to be? What could happen? Will this matter in 5 years' time? And are they truly judging me? Are they really? Or did I just come out like Jennifer Lawrence? Am I just, human, right? And real? Using goal-directed thinking. This is very important. If you haven't taken any notes yet, now's a good time. When dealing with negative self-talk, consider future, not past. So if I say to myself, that was so stupid, how am I getting better for the future, right? Is that helping me to achieve my goals? No, it's sinking me in a tar pit of negative self-talk. I'm in a tar pit, like the La Brea tar pits, right? If I were being goal-directed, I would say, that didn't come out like I wanted it to come out. I want to prepare more for next meeting, so I'm really ready to come out with a sharp comment. We fail often to succeed sooner. Have you ever heard that? Failure is a step. it's a stepping stone to success, right? When we do something wrong, think about, what did we learn from that? How are we going to use that as a stepping stone? Failure shouldn't be a tar pit. It should be a stepping stone to success. And using goal-directed thinking, think of it as if I give you 4 tokens. I'm going to give everyone 4 tokens today. I need to see you again. Hold on. I mean, see. Okay, I need to see your chat. I just see your words. So let's say I give everybody here 4 tokens. And these 4 tokens we're going to call failure tokens. Oh, I had a great boss once. If I made a mistake, she would say, how are we going to fix this? I love that. That's exactly right. How are we going to fix this? How are we going to learn from this? How are we going to do better next time? Instead of why did you do that? We're not going to sink into the morass of why, right? So, um, so if I give you 4 failure tokens, you get to use them to take risks. So on a lower level of risk, it's maybe asking someone out or asking your boss, how did I do, when you're not sure what they're going to say? Or a higher level of risk might be to submit a poem if you are not a poet, but you wrote a poem and you're going to submit it, right? Or you're going to apply for a job that maybe you're not sure if you're as qualified as they need, but you've got good energy, maybe apply for that job. Consider that you have these 4 failure tokens. How does that help your self-talk? Can someone tell me in chat? And then when I see a few comments in chat, maybe I'll call on someone in real life so I hear the sound of someone else's voice, right? Um, how does that help you to have these failure tokens? We're starting with 4, but by the way, you could have as many as you like. All right, how does it help you to have a failure token? It's helpful, especially with projects, absolutely. Because otherwise you might not start. If you think you have to do right everything, you have to do everything right the first time, then why would you even start? Why not do something you know you can do instead of something you might not could do, right? That was very Southern. Feel like there's less risk to take a chance. Exactly right. So as you guys are writing these answers, do you know that some corporations actually do use failure tokens? I think I was reading about one that gives out 2 per season, right? So I guess 8 a year. And you have to spend them. You have to do a project that fails. You have to take a risk that fails. It's such a fabulous idea. I love this idea because you're pushing people to do something that they're scared of, which may not work, but it may. And you're encouraging them to stretch their limits, right? Exactly right, Debbie. You're encouraging creativity. And from Dana, the do-over option is so strengthening. And from Debbie, exactly right. You relieve your stress because you're not a failure. You've used a token. You've used a token. You've learned from it. You can move on. You can move up. What else did I miss? There's less risk to take a chance, relieve stress, do-over option. Sometimes the idea that comes out of the, well, that didn't work, is even better and gets you toward what does work. Has anyone ever had an experience where doing something wrong is a very important part of doing it right? Right? Absolutely. Curtis is like, I'm right there with you, right? Absolutely. Um, Doing it wrong is part of doing it right. And that's why the longer we do something, the more we do something. I mean, the first day you have, let's say, a public day at the library where you do kind of a fair or whatever kind of event, it might not go perfectly, but what a great learning experience to do even better next time, right? So I hereby gift each of you with failure tokens, and they can look like whatever you want. They can look like a coin in your pocket. They can look like a little stone. They can be imaginary. I want you to spend them. I want you to take risks. I want you to do something without courting the possibility that your self-talk is going to say, why'd you do that? You're so stupid. You shouldn't have done that. Do it, see what happens. If it doesn't work, say, oh, well, there goes a failure token. I better ask Sharon for some more. Between you and me, you can have as many as you want, right? I have an example if you want. Curtis, can I hear from you? I'd love for you.
All right.
Yeah.
Great. One of the things that I do is for the state library, I manage a lot of state agency-wide projects, and one of them is our accountability report to the state legislature. And
Right.
there's a lot of quantitative data. And sometimes what I tell folks when I'm asking for input from the last fiscal year, if the numbers go down, that's okay. You know, it may tell a story about how we need to change that program or how we need to think about it differently, or if we can stop doing that program. And it's okay to stop doing
Right.
things and take on new things.
Absolutely. Instead of someone being afraid to tell you the truth, instead of someone trying to tweak their numbers and figure it out and spend even though they don't need to spend, or stop spending even though they do need to spend, you're basically saying, no, I just want to know what's happening here so that we can grow from it and we can learn from it. That's a great example. Does anyone else have an example for us of using your failure tokens or of not being afraid of failure because it brings success? Anybody else have an example for me? Looking at our chat. Not yet. Okay, we're good. So going back to our slides, um, goal-directed thinking is what we're really shooting for. How can I learn from this? There was a wonderful TED Talk. I don't know if any of you saw it. Did you guys see the TED Talk by Celeste Headlee, Headlee, where she talks about, let me just look at the chat again, where she talks about communication, how to communicate, how to hold a conversation. And she's quite wonderful. And she says, imagine everyone in the world can teach you something that you don't know. And here's the truth, you don't have to imagine it. Everyone, even if they're on death row, right? Whether they are superior to you, whether they are subordinate to you in a hierarchy, whether they are a child, a 3-year-old can teach you a lot that you don't know. So if you speak to someone, you realize that they could teach you something you don't know. It's a similar concept. Every mistake is a learning experience. What do we learn from it? What do we learn from it? Imagine how your life would change if every time you did something wrong, every time you made a mistake, you checked in and said, okay, I did this to become a better person. What am I learning from that? How would that change everything? How is that a step toward growth, right? Okay. So, is there something I can learn from this situation to help me do it better next time? Absolutely. Please take out a pencil and paper. Here, let me just fix this for a second. Oops, ups, eeps. Please take out a pencil and paper and do the following exercise. Let me move this a moment. Complete the following exercise. I got this idea from Dr. Kristen Neff. I want you to think about times when a close friend feels bad about themselves. Close friend feels really bad about themselves. They're struggling in some way. You could picture any situation that you want. It can be a real one. It can be one that happened or that didn't happen. So your friend got a bad evaluation. Your friend is struggling with feeling whatever they want to be feeling, whether it's loved or appreciated or heard or seen, valued. I want you to write this down if you can. How would you respond to your friend? You're at your best. You're not hungry. You're not tired. You're at your best. How would you respond to your friend? What would you do or say? And what is your tone? I'll give you a moment to do that first bullet point. When you're ready, and we're not rushing because you have time to do this, I want you to think about times when you feel bad about yourself or you are struggling. How do you respond to yourself in those situations? What might you do or say? What is the tone in which you talk to yourself? Do you ever metaphorically give yourself a hug? Right? What's your goal of talking to the other person? What's the goal of talking to yourself? Please write that down. I'm going to go back to, you don't have to rush, you could take your time with this, but I'm going to go back to our chat. Did anyone notice a difference between how they talk to themselves and how they would talk to a close friend? Did you notice a difference in action, in tone, or in words? Always gentler with a friend, says Dana. Gentler. It's like they're fragile. It's like you could hurt them. Why aren't you fragile? Don't you know that you could hurt yourself too? Right? What else? How do we speak to ourselves differently than we speak to a friend? It's funny, I would never tell a friend, calm down. That just would never come out of my mouth. But I tell myself, calm down. It's not a big deal. It's like, why do I efface my own experience? Why do I make myself feel small? Why would I do that? The goal with a friend is to lift them up. That's exactly right. Really good point, Charles. The goal is to put myself down. That's harsh. And yet, a lot of self-talk is like put us back in our place. We have the imposter syndrome. We're too far up. We need to smack ourselves down, right? Nailed it, Charles. Right there with Charles, right? More supportive to the friend to encourage. To me, it's as if I don't need to encourage myself, as if I'm not a person. I just need to fix the problem. Get over it, right? I would never say get over it to a friend. Always encouraging to my friends, point out flaws and failures to myself. I do not treat myself like a friend at my worst, right? At my best, I do. Frequently judgmental with yourself, so much less judgmental with a friend. So true. Yes, you guys are right on it. Write more if you want. I want to make sure we have enough time for everything, so I'm going back to here. Why not try treating yourself like a good friend? So you're saying to me, yeah, Sharon, right. Easier said than done. How do I do that? Well, let's talk. Okay, visualization. Can everyone go ahead and close your eyes for a moment? Make yourself comfortable in your chair. And I wrote this out in case somebody comes afterwards, but for the moment, I'm going to say it with you. So make yourself comfortable in your chair. Close your eyes, right? Breathe in and out. And I want you to visualize it's 10 years from now. It's 2030. This pandemic is long gone. You are living your best life. You love your life. You are delighted every day when you wake up smiling. You're delighted with the people around you, with the choices that you've made and that you're making. You feel grateful for the people around you and appreciated by them. You know that you're having a positive impact on your world. At work and at home, you feel a sense of purpose. You know yourself to be a role model and an inspiration for others. I want you to picture this very, very clearly. In this image, place yourself in a work setting. You love your life. You're delighted with your choices. You've reached for what you want and you've achieved it. Can you see yourself clearly? Do you see the expressions on the faces of the people around you? Do you see their eyes when they look at you? Do you even see so closely that you see what you're wearing in this image? It doesn't matter, but I want you to see the image very, very clearly. Do you see the expression on your future self's face? I want you to imagine going inside the body of your future self and looking out through their eyes. How does it feel to have that expression on your face? How does it feel to love your life, to be grateful for the people around you, to feel seen and appreciated? How does it feel to be delighted with your choices and your options? To know that you're living your purpose, to know that you're leaving the world a better place. Do you feel that? I want you to open your eyes and I want you to write down how that felt. And you can write it down for yourself. If you have a moment, write down some part of it in the chat so that we could discuss. How did that feel for you to be within your future self? Peaceful, satisfying, happy, contented. Oh, so let me help you out, Dana. We did what's called a quick visualization, and that works for many people, but not everyone. So what you would want to do if you want to continue working on it is to simply take more time to get into it. And if you want, you're very welcome to contact me. I'll work with you. And what we do with a longer visualization, when we take longer to get into it, it's easier for some people to imagine. It's not an issue. Some people just have an easier time slipping into visualization. And because of time, I tend to make it a little bit on the short side. Okay. Sure. Yeah, anytime. And oh, by the way, just as a side note, you all have my contact info. I consider us friends now. We've done a webinar, we're connected, right? You're so welcome to reach out to me about anything that I said today that you have a question about, or that you want to work on. I could give you ideas for how to work on it. If the visualization didn't work, I could do it with you in a way that would work. Yeah, feel free to reach out to me. Yeah, Tiffany will post the slides. So relaxing. Yeah. Could most of you feel how that felt to be in your future self's body? Felt pretty good? All right. So couldn't see myself, but I had feelings of myself. Good, good, good. That'll work. That's fine. Some of us are less visual in that way. Good. Okay. But been retired. Okay. Good, good, good. Felt great. So let's go back here for a second and go with this visualization. Let's get back to it. This visualization is creating your future self. And there are longer visualizations to see that future self. But you know what your future self does? Your future self can be your best friend. Your best friend. Let's go back. What do I mean by your best friend? So that future self, I am not trying to advocate for time travel. I'm not trying to advocate for, different realities existing. We all have intuition within ourselves. When we are quiet and go deep enough, we can experience ourselves in a different way. But with the cars honking and with the project due tomorrow and, you know, somebody wanting dinner on the table or whatever's going on in our lives, we very rarely have the opportunity to check in with our intuition, to check in with our kind of future self, the self who knows us, the self who knows what's going on, who knows how to help us. So that's what we're doing. I'm not being as hippie as you think, simply trying to get to a deeper place. So why do we do that? That person, that future person can be our best friend. And I'd like to share with you that when I was in college, I was very, very shy. I was raised by older parents, Holocaust survivor, and I was really taught, I was a very enthusiastic, kind of loud kid. And I was always told, you know, be seen and not heard, nobody wants to hear you. So I grew up very quiet. And by the time I got to college, I was the type, you know, the teacher would say, oh, where's Sharon? And I'd be sitting there in the front row saying, here, here, here. And the teacher still wouldn't see me. So how did I find my voice? It's a matter of deciding who I wanted to be, not who I was. So I'd like you each to write down, I am who I choose to be. I am who I choose to become, not who I once was. I'm not the sum of my mistakes. I am the person I choose to be. When we realize that, our negative self-talk transforms a little bit into this friend of ours. So if I would say to myself, that sounded stupid, my future self says, that didn't sound stupid at all. That sounded awesome. That was fine. You're getting your point across. So it's like your future self comes with you and can be your best friend and can transform your negative self-talk to positive. Are you with me? You get what I'm saying here? Now, what if you couldn't imagine your, oh, is it possible to get a video copy? Oh, thank you. I know it's being recorded, so Tiffany has all the answers, but I do know that it's being recorded. To life, by the way. So this best friend, so here's the deal. Are you guys good friends to people? Can you write down why you're such a good friend? Why are you a good friend? Why would I want to have you as my friend, Dana? Why would I want to have you as my friend, Curtis, Kelly, Jennifer, either Jennifer? Why would I want to have you as my friend, Mary? Why are you guys good friends? You listen. I bet you meant to say you listen with judgment, without judgment. I'm trying to think. You mean without negative judgment. Okay, okay, good. Without, right. That's fine. I figured. So we are good friends. Why? Because you're encouraging. Beautiful. Absolutely. 2 in a row. You encourage them. That's exactly right. You listen to them. You encourage them. You believe in them. Do you believe in your friends? Absolutely. So what happens when your friend makes a mistake? Right, when it's asked for. Very good, Curtis. That's beautiful. Most people don't realize that about advice, that it does need to be asked for to be appropriate valued. So when your friend needs you, you are there, right? Yep. Right. Better to say something than nothing. Absolutely. So you are there. Is it fair that you should be a good friend to everyone else and not to yourself? Is that fair? Should I go out and be a friend to Dana and supportive to Tiffany and encouraging to Curtis, and I'm lifting up Debbie, and I'm not a friend to myself? How does that work? What if I'm such an amazing friend to everyone else and I'm also a friend to myself? So instead of stepping on myself and making myself feel small, I lift myself up. I grow from my mistakes. We are amazing friends. Why not be a friend to ourselves? Write that down, bunnies. Write that down. Why not be a friend to ourselves? It sounds very hippie to say it, But what would actually happen if you were your own best friend? If you were there to support yourself, to encourage yourself? What would happen? It's an interesting question, right? So let's go for some quotes to live by. We're wrapping up, 10 more minutes. Quotes to live for. This is a very famous quote by Stephen Covey, who wrote 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. You all know, all the chicken soup books, all of that. Seek first to understand, then to be understood. And I added a word in purple. This is a method for dealing with conflict. You seek first to understand someone, then to be understood, rather than pushing your agenda or your perspective on someone. Well, what if you seek first to understand yourself? So when you say to yourself, I feel so hurt, instead of saying to yourself, you shouldn't feel hurt, how about saying, why do you feel hurt, honey? Why do you feel hurt? Tell me what's going on. Oh, I understand that. Maybe they didn't mean to hurt you. What would happen if you did that? Right? Seek first to understand. When you say to yourself, oh, I shouldn't have done that. Why did I do that? Okay, why do you feel you shouldn't have done that? What's going on? What are you feeling? Why? Okay, I get that. How did we learn from this? How are we going to gain a step in our life ladder, in our way up the mountain of potential that is life, the mountain of personal potential, right? And every failure is a step on that mountain. How are we going to make our way up? So seek first to understand, then to be understood, including yourself. Y'all there with that? Dr. Kristen Neff, whose work I explored for this, said, unlike self-criticism, which asks if you're good enough, self-compassion asks, what's good for you? What works for you? What do you need? Instead of criticizing ourselves, how about if we're compassionate to ourselves? That doesn't mean not working harder and going further. That means not squashing ourselves every time we're human. As humans, we're going to make mistakes. Anybody who's had a different experience of life, that's amazing. I've never heard that before, right? Human beings make mistakes. That's just the way it is. So how about instead of criticizing ourselves, having compassion for ourselves in the same way as we would for a friend? When we do the best that we can, we never know what miracle is wrought in our life or in the life of another. This is a wonderful role model for me. Talk about obstacles, right? Helen Keller had so many and still changed the world, absolutely changed the world for people with disabilities, as we all know. And what she's saying here is, we can't each do everything. Don't ask me to help you with your taxes. It would not work out. Curtis, I cannot help you with your job. I do not like numbers. They're not my thing. Okay? Now, that's not a bad thing. I have a lot of virtues. So I hire somebody else to help me with my numbers. I have a lot of virtues. Why focus on what I don't like or what I don't enjoy, right? I don't do that well, but I do other things well. I can motivate people. I can help people find their voice. I can help people have confidence, right? I can help people change their inner talk. If I do the best I can, that may bring a miracle to my life or to somebody else's life. If you do the best you can, why focus on what you're doing wrong? Why focus on a weakness? Why not just allow yourself to say, oh, there's a weakness. I want to make it stronger. I'm going to work on that, right? Or not, right? When I ride a horse, I get a little scared. I need to work on that. But you know what? I'm not going to knock myself. How would I know how to ride a horse? I haven't had a lot of experience, right? I need a little more experience. So rather than knocking myself, I'm going to say, I'm going to do what I do well. And I'm going to continue to learn in the other areas. But I'm not going to bash myself for not doing everything well. That's inappropriate and counterproductive. When we do the best we can, we never know what miracle is wrought in our life or in the life of another. Onward to our next, we have some homework. Now, this is optional homework. I'm not going to make you do anything that you don't have time to do, but just as optional homework. Over the next week, let's say from today to next weekend, not this weekend, are you willing to examine and improve your self-talk? I'm going to guess, because you took this seminar, which I don't think is mandatory, right, Tiffany? Is that right? Not mandatory, optional? Okay. Are you willing to examine and improve your self-talk? I'm going to guess that you are. Let's experiment with treating ourselves like a good friend. 4 steps. 1, notice when you're being critical. This may be so much of a habit that we don't even notice it. These voices in our head might be so familiar that we're driving through town and we're at a stoplight and you're like, oh, I didn't start on time. Oh, I didn't go fast enough. Oh, I didn't do this. Oh, I didn't do that. Notice when you're being critical. When you can, when you're sitting and centered, write down exactly what you said to yourself. Write down the words and write down the tone. You were biting, you were sarcastic, you were negative, you were judgmental, whatever the tone was. Write it down verbatim. Next, this is a very important step. Step number 3, bring out your compassion. How can you express your feelings with compassion rather than self-judgment? What if a friend stayed too long at that stoplight, not you? And your friend said, oh my God, I stayed too long at the stoplight. You're like, okay, so you'll pay more attention and you'll leave exactly on time next time. It's okay. Nobody was hurt. It's all good. It's a few seconds. This is not a big deal. How about speaking to yourself the way you would speak to your friend? How about honoring the good intentions of your inner critic? Thanks. You're right. I needed to move sooner. You're right. I'm going to note that for next time. Honor the good intentions. Ask for permission to be more compassionate. So let's get an example. Let's say I say something at a meeting and people say, that's never going to work. And I say, oh my God, that was so stupid. I'm bringing out so I write it down. I said that was so stupid. I judged myself. I said it very harshly. Now, bringing out my compassion. If it were my friend that said that, I would say, it just wasn't what they needed to hear in that moment. There were better ideas out there. Nobody's thinking about that. Maybe you want to prepare more for the meeting. Maybe you want to think more about it. Not a big deal. You know what? You feel stupid? I understand that you're getting better and better at work and you're allowing yourself to judge your idea. That's great. Can I have permission to be more compassionate? Ask yourself, can I have permission to be more compassionate here? Yourself says, yeah. Say, all right. You just used a failure token, girl. You just used a failure token. You said something that didn't work. On to the next thing, right? Onward and upward. So sometimes when you ask permission, just like Curtis was saying, he doesn't give advice unless it's asked for. Sometimes when we give ourselves advice without asking for it, we don't listen. So we need to say, are you up for hearing something? Can I be compassionate for a moment here? We need to hear that. Yeah. What's another way of looking at this? Do you get what I'm saying? Okay. Reframe the self-talk in a friendly, positive way, as if you were speaking to a close friend. So the homework challenge, if you don't screenshot anything else, maybe you want to screenshot this, or maybe you want to just copy this in whatever way you do, because this is what's going to help you. I am trying to get from you some of your self-talk in life, but I'm not going to follow you through life noting your self-talk, right? I couldn't possibly, even if I wanted to. So you have to note it, and you need to strive to make that better, because that will change your life. It'll change your relationship with yourself, right? Checking time, couple more minutes. I just have some recommended reading that I wrote down here. Just some of the techniques. I didn't even do full sightings or anything like that. I just wrote down a couple things we used. The triple column technique to change your thoughts, to change your life. Challenging negative self-talk. Ben Martin wrote some of that stuff. Self-compassion exercises by Christian Neff. And I'm giving a shout out to Dr. Albert Ellis. Although, if anybody knows Dr. Ellis, you know that he's got a lot of issues too, but he did write some great books. And he is the dude when it comes to self-talk. I believe he came up with that phrase, how to stubbornly refuse to make yourself miserable about anything. Yes, anything. He talks about how much our self-talk affects our sense of self. And I think it's worth reading, even though it's old. Okay, I think we have one more here. Let's be mindful of how we speak to ourselves, in the same way that we're mindful of how we speak to others, you would never speak to your friend the way you're speaking to yourself. That's a sign. That's a sign that you're not being appropriate. Be your own best friend, right? Practice being kind. Practice having compassion. Experiment with treating ourselves like a good friend. Thank you for your participation. That's true. I would love to hear from you. Any of you who have been at other webinars of mine know that it's much more fun for me to talk to you than to grade papers. It's much more fun for me to talk to you and help you and work with you than, you know, to just prepare a little PowerPoint. So reach out. I'm so accessible. It would be a joy to me to explore any of this that you'd like to explore. And this is my information if you need it. And I'm going to go back to reality. And Tiffany, I just want to thank you so much for inviting me and for making this possible. And I know that we only have a little bit of time left, but are there any questions that anybody wants to ask? Oh, thank you. Oh my gosh, I'm realizing I was using laughter as a mechanism when I'm feeling bad. You would never laugh at a friend, right? So there's friendly laughter, there's laughing with, and there's laughing at. Sometimes we can laugh with. I'll never forget my first day of class in college, and I was a little tired or whatever, and I said, I teach public speaking. I literally said that, and I could not stop laughing. I could not stop laughing. And that was a kind of a self-love thing, because I thought, you know what I just told this whole class? That mistakes are cool. I just, in one moment, have taught them we're allowed to make mistakes, right? So I had to laugh at myself. Let's see if there's anything else I missed. Laughter, thanks so much. Great session, good, good, good. Wonderful, informative, fun session. I'm so, so glad. Do we have any questions from anyone? If you have a question, you could write it in the chat, or if you'd like, you may ask it in real voice. Do you feel like you're taking something away? Thank you, I needed this, good, helpful. You feel like you're taking something away? I mean, it's easier said than done to change your self-talk. I'm trying to give you techniques for how to do it. Recognizing what it is, recognizing where it's coming from, the type of self-talk that we all share, and how do we change it? How to be our own best friends. Can't wait to get the recording. Good, good, good. I love it. Food for thought, fun for thought, self-talk. My parents need this. Hand them the video. Say, I think you guys could use this. All right, it was a pleasure to be here. Again, if anyone wants to reach out with questions, with examples, you are very welcome to do so. Hi, Jennifer. Do you have a question? Or just saying hey? Yeah, if anybody wants to hop on video to say